Okay, I have two questions in here. But before I answer these questions, I would like to remind people again in here, when you are eating in a monastic temple or Buddhist temple, you don't use one hand. You don't put one hand underneath the table and then you grab things up and you start to move like that. Because when I see from here, there are people who forget the use of one hand, put it under the table and start to do it like this. And I can see this movement all the time, like in a temple, in a Buddhist temple, people eating in there, they don't move the body around. In other words, you don't move the body around. You have to quite stationary. You have to use both hands to eat. Eating in a temple is disciplinary. Everything is disciplinary. You're not free to do what you want, like at home. You can smoke your cigarette when you're eating, or you can be watching television and listening to the radio, or some people could put a foot on the table when they're eating. I've seen that. Put a foot on the table and then they grab the foot in here. That's not allowable in the temple. And also, after eating, you don't do it like this, or like this, or like this. No. You see how our bhikshunis, when they sit like that, you know. You can put both hands on the table, but you don't do it like this, you know. You understand? So that's, discipline is important in the temple. If everybody is allowed to do what they want, then there's no vinaya, there's no precepts. So it's not acceptable. So just remind you, I'm not pinpointing anybody, but you really have to watch out, okay? And you can talk also. You can't even whisper unless you really don't disturb people. No one can hear you, that may be okay. Okay? Now, that's all. After being said, that's my first question is here. Venerable, why chanting is done in non-English language? After all, the subconscious mind will eventually accept suggestions in the language that it understands. Now, it is suggesting that we should chant in English. But I tried that a few times, and I've been trying that for 30 years, but people seem to like to chant not in English. I've been distributing paper out in English, and they still like to chant in a melody that is Chinese. And also, if you have been to Metaphorist Temple, that temple it's almost like 90% Caucasian, English speaking in that temple in America, in California. And their chanting book is not in English. The monks, the bhikshus in there, the professors, they have been monks for years, but they still chant in Pali. For example, they chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa 3 times, and they still chant like that. They won't say, homage to the blessed one, the worthy one, the rightly self-awakened one. They don't chant it like that. So, they don't chant in English, they chant in Chinese. And also, I'll give you another example. When they are chanting recollection on impurities, you know how they chant on impurities? That's a good lesson to learn too. Hanamayam kayagata sati bhagavam patam banamasti. That's how they chant. They won't chant like this. Let us now recite the passage on mindfulness immersed in the body. They don't chant like that. You understand? Because Buddhism has been in North America for maybe 100 years, and there's no genius or there's no musicians who try to rewrite the chanting in a melody that fits the English language. Maybe you can do it. Why don't you pick it up and let me know how you introduce a melody into it. And if you don't follow the melody, it would be a little strange. For example, Ayam komi kayo uttam badatala adukasi makata. If you turn in English, this body of mine from the soles of the feet on up, from the crown of the head on down, surrounded by skin. I mean, you lose that melody that has been like in Pali and Sanskrit for centuries. And what we chanted here is the Chinese. And I've been thinking, maybe we should chant in Sanskrit and Pali. But then I said, if we chant in Pali, then we still have to educate on people how to speak Pali. And I myself, I'm not an expert in Pali. I know Pali and Sanskrit, but I'm not an expert in it. And how can I justify in saying I teach Pali? But I can call myself more or less an expert in Chinese, because that's my mother language. So I'm rest assured that I can chant in Chinese. And if you ask Chinese, then I know I can give you the answers. So sorry, if you really want to chant in English, can you come up with some melody? You know, write some notes on how to put a melody onto the English language. First of all, you have to translate the Chinese into English. And then you have to write notes, musical notes, to substantiate your melody. And that's a tough job. Maybe you should do it. And then when I look at the latter part of the question, it says, the subconscious mind will eventually accept suggestions in the language that it understands. That means you are assuming that your subconscious mind only understands English and not anything else. I tell you, your subconscious mind is more powerful than just understanding English. Your subconscious mind understands non-language movements. Your subconscious mind understands body language, not just the written words. You know what that subconscious depends on what you mean, how you define your subconscious mind. If you look at subconscious mind not in the subterranean level, in the very crude level, of course, that's language. But if you look at subconscious mind really in detail, that is the mono consciousness and alaya consciousness. The mono consciousness and the alaya consciousness, which is the seventh and eighth consciousness, understands everything, understands even feelings, transcends the barrier of language. So how can you say the subconscious mind only understands English? I think your power in your subconscious mind is more than just understanding English. You just haven't used it. It understands non-language. It breaks the barrier of language. Don't underestimate yourself. All right? Okay? So that answers the questions. Next question. After working for 1.5 years, I'm now given a place in culinary skills for 5 months. As the course is being sponsored by taxpayers, therefore I don't have to incur, I can't read that word, cost? I don't know. In light of the above, I also have to stop working to be in school. I have been contemplating and fearful too, as I have to forgo my job for 5 months. That means no income. I am a new immigrant and your advice is most appreciated. Yeah, I appreciate you asked that question. I think that question should be well addressed to a social worker, not a monk. I'm a monk, I'm not a social worker. So if that affects your salary, affects your time as a new immigrant, maybe you should seek advice from immigration counselors or social workers or employment, government employment officers, and not to me. I mean, I'm just a monk. I'm nobody. I'm just a monk. And all these issues about income, about getting a job, about losing a job, about giving up your job and put yourself in school, that should really be something that you should plan in your life. I mean, I think you are in a much better position to plan your own life in terms of making money and budgeting your time, budgeting your money, you know, by yourself instead of asking me. Because first of all, I don't understand your background. I didn't see your deposit book, how much money you have. I don't know your financial situation. So it would be foolhardy for me here to make you any suggestion. I'm afraid that I gave you the wrong suggestion. All right? So you should ask a social worker, employment officer, government officer, immigration officer, and all right?
Can you please chant in Chinese what you chanted before to see how it sounds like?
The Chinese chanting is dated from 1,800 years ago. So the melody that we use has been passed on to us from 1,800 years ago. And that melody is one of the oldest, the most ancient melody in Chinese music. And how did that melody come about? I don't know. It's an invention. Like, for example, the Gregorian style of chanting in Roman Catholic, they have their own melody. If we fit Chinese into the Gregorian style chanting, it wouldn't have the same effect. So music, you know, you really have to create music according to the culture, according to the English culture. You create the music that fit into it. Certainly, if you rap the Buddhist teachings, there's no effect in it. Rap, you know, for example, like rapping. How can you rap Chinese? How can you rap Buddhism into your song? You can't even hip hop into this. Can you? You can hip hop. You can rap. So what can you have? Maybe the gentle kind of music, like in the old days. You know, music itself has developed drastically. In the 60s and the 70s. In the musics are not the same as in the 80s and the 90s. I still remember in the 60s, the kind of songs, very gentle. I still remember when I was very young, I listened to the McCoy sisters. That kind of song, may you always, you know, always like blessings, may you always be having laughter, may you always, those very, very gentle, very mild kind of music. And then in the 80s, it's all different. In the 90s and in the 90s, they start to rap. And I don't understand a word of the rapping. Do you understand? And also, some music is just like, I imagine that some music is just like in a factory where there's an assembly line, a lot of clinking, clanking going on. And that's the kind of music that I have today. I'm not criticizing present-day music, modern music, but it changes all the time. So we can't fit music into chanting. We better retain the old melody. But if you are interested, you can always refer to the Parita chanting, invitation to the Devas. The Parita chanting, a lot of bhikshus, monks, they chant in the Pali language, which is really something. It's just reading, but the way they sound it out is very soothing. So the Parita, P-A-R-I-T-T-A, Parita chanting, protection chanting, invitation to Devas chanting. Personally, in the Chinese chanting, I like the Chinese chanting, and I'm more or less very conversant, quite well in my Chinese chanting, because I'm very musical in Chinese, in the Chinese music.
Can you give us a taste of it?
A taste of it? Well, I sing Chinese opera, but it's in Cantonese. Yeah. But it's in Cantonese, and it's not right for a monk to hear to sing in the Chinese opera. No. Huh? Or, for example, in saying the prayers, the first few verses I can chant it to you in Chinese. Let me just remember. in the first few verses. 往年常生灭，真如不变迁。从此难思议，无诸对空算难。That's the first few verses. So it's a long prayer. I don't know how it sounds to you. Is it acceptable to your ears? Are you sure? It's a different kind of language, a different kind of melody. We still require some people who are creative in translating it into English and getting the English melody. But there are geniuses like that. But you can. Anybody who is musical in here, raise your hands. Anybody playing musical instruments? So what do you play? You play guitar or piano?
Piano and vocals.
Oh, you're a vocalist. Oh, piano and all that? Yeah. So maybe you can take up the job of transforming it into the English language. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful the way it is.
Yeah. So there's a lot to learn in it. Power of the chanting. Get into power of the chanting, the Kuala Lumpur chanting. There's a Kuala Lumpur Parita chanting. If you Google if you take into the Google, it's Parita chanting in Kuala Lumpur. There's a lot of monks chanting, and when they chant, it's not just one person. There's one chanter, and then they switch into the next, and then sometimes they chant in group, and sometimes they do a single, and then they do a group. So it's very soothing to the ears. And then more questions. I only got 3 questions. So, yeah?
Just a reminder, if anyone is interested in becoming a tour guide this fall, we're going to start our training on October 10th. That's 2 weeks from today. So if anyone is interested in developing their public speaking skills, learning to speak in front of a large group of people, this is an excellent opportunity to get that on.
So you can overcome your fear by participating in being a tour guide, because as Reverend Hong has pointed out, fear in public speaking. If you have fear in public, you're being an introvert and you can't speak out and you are fearful of public speaking. This is an opportunity to overcome that kind of fear. So, as Venerable Hong Chi has said, fear in public speaking, if you look at from 2 perspectives, the one is you're afraid that you want to prove yourself. You want to prove that you're good. That is a strengthening of yourself. That's one perspective. You want to prove. I want to prove that, yes, I can speak. I can be an extrovert. I can do better. And the other is you don't have any fear. You just want to learn. You're not fearful of failing. You just want to learn, and if you fail, so you just do it as a learning process. So the other is to look at it from perspective of learning. Another one is look at it from a perspective of proving yourself. If you want to prove yourself, you just raise your arrogance. You want to show people that you're good. You don't need that. So fear is usually because of your ego. You have an ego that you want to protect. You're fear of death because you don't want to lose yourself. You're fearful of death of your relatives, your friends, because you're fearful of losing them. I think this is a foundation in telling the Dharma to some people. So in the process of introducing the temple, you can, and also you can answer questions that they raise. Sometimes they raise questions about like fear, questions about the kind of troubles they have gone through, and they need some counseling. And from perspective of a Buddhist, you can tell what you feel about the problems. So, but when you are answering, don't build up that ego in you. You know, don't say, I'm teaching you, I'm better, or I'm your guide. I mean, you have to be, you can't raise your ego. You must not be egoistic. Yeah, so why not join the tour, introducing to other people? And I realized that there are some musicians in here, but next time you can join our senior group. Just about last week, we entertained 1,000 senior people in here, and we have a band in here. A lady is singing, but if you can play guitar, you can play piano, you can join in to entertain the 1,000 seniors, and they all love it. Okay, so remember, next year, every year we have that kind of meeting, 1,000 seniors in here, and we have a stage, a platform. The singers can sing, they can play music in there, and remind us that you can join in the next round. Every year, 1 or 2 months before, they start to ask, when is the event going to be held? And we distribute the tickets, and they all come to get the tickets, and they really love the event, you know, that we have. So that makes the seniors very happy. And we have it for 25 years, and every time at least 1,000 seniors. So 25,000 people have already enjoyed that kind of occasion. They all felt very happy. So that's rendering compassion to seniors. Not just talking about it. You walk it out, you act, you render your love, you render your compassion to all senior people, no matter who they are, whether they are related to you, whether they are your friends, or you don't know about them, they all can come. You know. Join us next time.